Olá, voltamos com a sequência do tema Tecnologia de Rádio Digital DRM e o seu status de mercado. Neste episódio, você verá aplicações e demonstrações em casos reais do DRM.
So, welcome to the third and last module or episode, if you want, of Digital Radio Mondiale, Smart Radio for All. So you saw that Digital Radio Mondiale covers all bands and shares the features across all bands. And in this session, after we have looked at the standard, some of its features, we want to impress on you that DRM is so much more than audio and therefore so much more valuable than analog. So I will ask Alex now to tell us why DRM offers so much more, especially for these times. So,
thank you very much, Ruxandra. My name is Alexander Zink. I'm Vice Chair of the DRM Consortium and also work for Fraunhofer IIS as Senior Business Development Manager. Fraunhofer IIS is a not-for-profit research organization in Europe. Let's have a look at some of the advanced applications that you can do and enable using the advanced tool set that digital radio gives you as a broadcaster and as a society. First of all, we want to look at distance learning and radio schooling options, then have a look at public signage with DRM, live monitoring I want to present, have a look at some of the receiver solutions just quickly, and finally, some video that we created, how DRM gets from the studio to the listener in a graphical way. Distance learning and radio schooling via DRM. As you must be aware, in the current COVID situation, the typical ways of schooling and teaching are interrupted in many places around the globe. Billions of students are affected. And that also recreates the divide between the wealthy, who have other means of communicating, and the poor, who may be remotely located or may not be well equipped with internet connectivity. In those cases, digital radio, DRM radio schooling is the perfect solution, which is now being established and tested in many places around the world. Let's have a look at how it works. First of all, radio enjoys wide coverage. That same benefit will be available for our radio schooling application, so we can reach people in our community or with the right transmission system far apart in remote areas. And then we use the fact that DRM provides, besides audio, also the capacity to transmit data and multimedia services. In this case, for the lecture notes. All of that is transmitted as the audio and journal line data application over our DRM transmission directly to the listeners, to the students. On a technical level, the transmission side looks like this. You have the studio, which takes the input from either the authorities or the local teaching staff, consisting of audio programs, the lessons with a live teacher, and the journal line text information and graphics that represents the different radio textbooks that students would otherwise have access to. So journal line has the textual graphical information that associates and accompanies the lessons given by the teachers. All of that is transmitted over our standard DRM transmission and distribution channel to the transmitters and then to the listeners. The listener's user experience looks like this. You have the audio track. The audio lesson for a particular class level and subject is on air at certain times according to a schedule, just as you would have in your school environment. However, the accompanying journal line information, the electronic book, textbook that accompanies these classes and studies, that is available at all times. So during the lesson, the teacher can make reference and ask students to open certain pages of that learning material, but it is also available before and after class to students at any time to either do complete self-study without tuning into to a live service, for example, for remote places, if at that time no live service is provided, or to prepare and then follow up on the live sessions with the teacher. A typical menu structure for an accompanying ebook service in Journaline could look like this, where you have the different class levels, and for every class level you have the different topics that are provided. In this case, as an example, mathematics. The actual lesson then could look like this. You have the lesson that is presented to the students as part of the live class and for self-study. And that is then followed up and accompanied by some quiz with the answers also provided over digital radio. Keep in mind, all this information is provided over the air. There is no need for any student to access or have available internet and mobile radio, mobile services. Let's have a look at this example, how it can look like in a real world environment where I'm currently tuned into the radio educational service, the radio school service. I listen to the audio of the teacher, and at the same time I follow up in the Journaline ebook material.
Good morning, students. Welcome to Radio School. This session is for Class 4 Mathematics. Today we will learn about numbers in Chapter 1. Please navigate to the Journaline page, Distance Learning, Class 4, Mathematics, Chapter 1, Numbers. Please open Lesson on the Journaline. Let us start with classification of numbers. The first set of classification is natural numbers. Now we have a quiz on what we have learned today are in the next page for you to verify. That's it for today. Thank you.
So that gives you an idea. It also demonstrates that the Journaline information is cached in the receiver and therefore immediately available for interactive on-demand navigation through the whole set of information by the listener on the radio set, or as we are now establishing for these initial applications and test cases around the world, have a DRM radio with a Wi-Fi hotspot built in, where the radio can be placed somewhere in a community, in a private home, or in a class environment. And every student has their own device, a cheap tablet or a mobile phone, and just requires a web browser to access the radio content on that radio set. Keep in mind, still no internet required. Another good example of using the toolset that Digital Radio DRM provides for us is public signage service. In some places, it is crucial to give information to people who otherwise may not have easy access to information, and also to have the infrastructure in place in case of public warnings and emergency disaster warning dissemination. That's a classic example. You have a public signage service. Instead of installing in a city the expensive 5G modules and contracts in all the different places to feed them with information, just do it with a broadcast. That's a flat cost, and you can reach tens of thousands, if not millions, of these places with a single transmission and update the content on the public screens. An example of that service was also demonstrated specifically for the use case of India, where you have remote places and also the need for public announcement services in case of emergency. And that has been demonstrated here. As you can see in the background, that's a marketplace environment, and as part of that, there's installed a screen, a public screen, which cycles through the Journaline information on a regular basis, giving onion stock prices for the agricultural sector there, and all of this kind of information. And then we enable the public emergency warning functionality, a real crisis, and suddenly our public screen, the public signage, fed by DRM, becomes a public announcement system, including audio. Let's have a look how that looks in live.
DRM, Digital Radio Mondiale, is more than just your digital next generation AM and FM. It can do a lot more for the public and for the good of the society. Let's have a look at one example that we are presenting at BES. This is the public signage service based on DRM transmission, which means that this public signage service to be installed in a public place does not require any internet, any working IP, any mobile connection. It receives the information over the air from the DRM transmission of All India Radio. In this case, the content that is presented on this public signage demonstrator is exactly the same journal line content that is shown on all the radios receiving live signal here at the booth at BES. In this case, we have lots of information. We have sports updates, latest political news, we have celebrity news, mandi prices with the latest stock updates on onions, and so on. Plenty of information sources. However, the true magic happens if, God forbid, an emergency happens. Let's say a tsunami is rolling in, and the public needs to be informed as quickly as possible to get away, to find a shelter. This is what we can do with the public signage as well. Actually, in the case of an emergency, the public signage screen becomes a full public announcement service. We switch on the audio, we alert the people surrounding the screen, we have the bar that indicates there's an emergency going on, and we have the information, the news about the type of information and what people need to do to get to safety.
If this had been an actual emergency, you would have been instructed.
So I think it gives you an idea of the potential for public signage services as a public good enabled by digital radio very efficiently and affordably. Finally, just for your information, DRM, the consortium, has established a online monitoring service where eventually all the DRM transmissions in the world are supposed to be accessible. That same service can also be made available for broadcasters online. The idea is that the management, engineering, but also editorial staff who work on the content constantly, but may not have a means to receive the signal if it is far away transmitted, they can access the full DRM transmission using a standard web browser, live decoded from the output of the content server as all the DRM receivers are receiving it at that moment. That gives the encouragement and also the security to editorial staff to make sure that they know what's being transmitted is exactly what they intended to put on air. I invite you, you can go to that URL presented here, have a look at yourself how it looks like as it was presented on at the BES recently. If you want to get a glimpse of how it works for yourself, because the live monitoring service that was mentioned earlier is for consortium members only, there are two ways. Either you become a DRM consortium member, that's the best way. I invite everybody, commercial, non-commercial, public, private, everybody's invited to become a member of the DRM consortium and become part of the family, rolling out DRM and helping with the migration from analog AM, FM to digital radio. The second option is you click on the URL provided here. That is a monitoring service provided by RRI, Radio Republik Indonesia, for their currently established DRM FM transmissions, where they also will trial out the emergency warning functionality. And that gives you a 24/7 access to their transmissions as they are on air today, as we speak in Indonesia. Even though you're not there, you can at least monitor exactly what's going on air in Indonesia. Feel free to visit that webpage. On the DRM receiver side, there is plenty of news. On the car side, over 2.5 million cars are now on the roads in India with DRM built in. The important part here is none of those cars requires any additional payment by the buyer. The DRM feature is just part when you buy the radio set, DRM comes as part of it. And plenty of companies, as you can see, are working on car-based solutions. The same with home radios, with new receivers from Gospel and Starwaves being presented recently. And if you go to the DRM Consortium webpage, there you will find information, videos that demonstrate these elements. And finally, we are presenting the solution to receive DRM in the FM band signals on a mobile phone. At the moment, what that requires is the software that's readily available and an external analog RF front-end dongle via USB connected to your Android phone. However, in future, the goal is to have DRM built in natively in all the phones that have analog FM support today. Technically, without any hardware modification, they could also do DRM. The only requirement is that the software has access to the IQ data provided by the FM frontend within the radio, the mobile phone set. So for the manufacturers of smartphones in a country that has adopted DRM in the FM band, this is a very attractive proposition because it enables things like emergency warning functionality on a mobile phone, even if the local mobile phone networks are off the air and unavailable. People still can use their phone to receive latest information and be informed. And then DRM is a standard feature built into those phones without any hardware modification, as I said. In summary, what you learned today, the DRM standard is a superior technology to analog in our view. It is the direct successor, digital radio, of the analog predecessors, AM and FM broadcasting. It replicates the same business model. It keeps them alive as they are established. It gives all the power to the broadcasters running their own infrastructure and being in control of their own transmissions. It is very spectrum efficient, as it can broadcast up to 3 services plus multimedia components on a single transmission frequency. In the case of the VHF bands, actually only requiring half the bandwidth for 3 services compared with 1 analog FM service. It is very green, and huge cost savings can be obtained by the broadcasters from the lower required distribution energy alone. And as we saw earlier, if you have a nationwide network of 3 FM stations, with 29 transmitters, 10 kilowatts each, the energy cost savings per year can be in the range of million. So that's huge for the broadcasters, getting better service out for their listener and saving a lot on the distribution. That alone is probably worth migrating over to digital radio DRM. It offers so much more than audio. We've seen some of the use cases. You've learned about journal-line and the advanced features, multimedia components, which open new revenue possibilities. As an example, by journal-line, focusing on individual listener groups with targeted ads, even though being transmitted over the broadcast medium. You don't need any broadband or mobile internet. Digital radio is still terrestrial radio, free to air, accessible to everybody, and available in cases of emergency and disaster. It is a real true integrator and universal provider, not only for information and education, but also for emergency warnings. And with that, we want to say goodbye, and I hand over to Ruxandra.
Thank you so much, Alex. So you rounded it all up. Fantastic DRM. One question we always get is, okay, so how do we go from PowerPoint to reality? And so we put together a little video which will show you regulators, broadcasters, listeners, how they can benefit from digital and what are the steps to really introduce digital radio DRM into your country. So I hope you will enjoy this fairy tale. We offer it to you for free.
Digital Radio Mondiale is radio reimagined for all. Digital Radio Mondiale, or DRM, is part of digital communications worldwide. DRM is designed as a high-quality digital replacement for analogue radio broadcasting. With the DRM Digital Radio Standard, the existing radio infrastructure can be modernised to offer listeners so much more. With some investment, DRM offers vast benefits, for example, much richer and better content for everybody using less energy. Digital Radio Mondiale offers digital radio for all. So how can we digitise a whole country with DRM? Let's imagine a country called Integria, with cities and villages, mountains and deserts. This imaginary country, maybe a bit like yours, has 25 million inhabitants. Digitalia, its capital of 6 million people, is a trading and banking centre. There are also 2 other medium-sized cities in the west, some semi-autonomous townships in the south, and a great forest region dividing the country in 2. Agriculture is important, and the rural population is spread over large areas. Integria, this medium-sized country with a limited GDP, has many communication challenges. How to provide news, information, entertainment and education to the whole of the population. How to warn people of dangers and disasters, be they man-made or natural. Currently, Integria has an integrated radio broadcasting network using shortwave, medium wave and FM transmissions, which can be received by most people in many but not all areas of the country. The public service broadcaster, called National Radio NR, uses one old shortwave transmitter and 3 medium wave transmitters that cover mainly rural areas. In the cities, low-power but expensive FM stations deliver a mixture of news and travel content in several languages and dialects, but their signal does not travel far beyond the city limits. So FM covers about 15% of the population and medium wave 80%, while villages in the Great Forest region do not get any coverage. However, people in rural areas would like more radio in local languages for more hours in the day. DRM is the only digital radio system that embraces all the currently used radio frequency bands and can help improve the radio services for Integria. DRM can offer full national and international coverage to Integria's public broadcaster. DRM can offer services to smaller community stations for the needs of local listeners in small cities and villages. DRM allows the broadcaster to transmit up to 3 different radio broadcasts from one single transmitter, so you could have a greater variety of radio content. So what's the plan to migrate the current analogue system to digital in Integria? One option is to establish or upgrade to DRM the existing shortwave transmitter covering the whole of Integria to include the capital, the cities, the townships, the Great Forest, each rural area from one secure location. This means national radio programmes and emergency notifications can now reach everyone. A second additional option is to establish or upgrade the existing medium wave transmitters just for regional coverage. Each of these transmitters can carry up to 3 radio broadcasts, so the content can be richer, more varied, and in the regional languages or dialects. A medium wave transmitter switched over to DRM provides the same coverage but using up to 50% less power than analogue. That's a lot of energy savings. A further option is to digitise the FM radio stations in the capital. And in other parts of the country, the FM stations, commercial or state-funded, could also benefit from DRM. More content in more languages on flexible DRM for all. All these 3 digitisation scenarios can be scheduled and combined in order to reach all of the citizens of Integria. Let's look at the extra benefits of DRM. Well, it's not just audio. DRM radios also have a screen, and DRM can provide data along with the audio broadcasts. Data means text and pictures, from maps to maths lessons, live sports results in different languages, and emergency warnings in case of disasters. DRM provides an opportunity for digital radio station managers to use this data channel to create a new revenue stream. In summary, Digital Radio Mondiale, DRM, is flexible, green, and delivers universal access to information so the whole country can be connected. And every pupil and student of Integria can be provided with education, even in the remote areas with no internet access. With more radio broadcasts, there are opportunities for more jobs. Emergency broadcasts can also be regionalised and transmitted from safe areas only to the affected zone or locality.
Good morning, you're listening to NR1.
The government are asking the residents of South Haven to stay indoors.
In a national emergency, the DRM local, regional and national broadcasting network allows the government to alert and talk to all the Integria citizens during any kind of disaster, as they have an emergency channel available at a moment's notice. Integria can now benefit from the reinvention of radio and enjoy excellent sound quality for small or large area broadcasting with country-wide coverage. Up to 3 times as many broadcasts using the same transmission infrastructure. 50 to 90% transmitter energy savings, depending on the transmission infrastructure. A text and picture service by radio, which helps with general information and education. A national emergency warning feature that can be used at the flick of a switch. A new receiver industry and extra jobs in broadcasting and manufacturing. So what are the key steps to successfully rolling out digital radio in Integria or your own country? To enjoy superior digital radio for all, a regulatory framework is required. The government needs to promote digitisation publicly and actively. Let broadcasters know when digital frequency licenses will be available and when the digital services will be launched. Regulators, broadcasters, receiver manufacturers and retailers need to work together from the start of the digital radio project. Remember, digital broadcasts cannot be heard using analogue receivers. Nearer to the digital radio launch date, there needs to be a public awareness campaign, especially in remote areas. The government could consider subsidising new receivers so that their prices are as low as possible. The government could also request and receive grants and funding from international organisations. DRM encourages a homegrown radio manufacturing industry. There's no reason why local manufacturers couldn't develop DRM digital radios for Integria. It doesn't matter whether manufacturers want to make standalone radios, retrofit receivers in old cars, or add them to brand new vehicles. DRM is an open standard available to anybody. Listeners are the ultimate beneficiaries in a successful rollout of digital radio. DRM technology enables great and rich content and can save lives. DRM is radio reimagined for the benefit of all.
And you can get this video and many others about several aspects of DRM going to the DRM YouTube channel. So we invite you to look at all these videos and learn about DRM. As already mentioned, technical details are contained in the updated version 5 of the DRM handbook, which you can download, print for free from handbook.drm.radio. And if you want to keep in touch with us, drm.org is your home. You can get free monthly newsletters and all the information. And you can follow us on YouTube, Flickr, and other social media. You can write to us directly at projectoffice@drm.org. And we invite you to become members, associated members, and supporters of DRM. You will be rewarded richly, because the Digital Radio Mondiale is really what it says, digital radio for all. It's an advanced radio, modern radio for all the listeners, all the people in a country and in the world. Thank you very much.
Esta é a trilha 7 Rádio do 7 Experience Academy. Agradecemos as participações de Ruxandra Obreja e Alexander Zink.